Welcome everyone to another edition of Taking Stock Live. I'll tell you, for me personally, these are the brightest spots during my week when I get to talk to some of the real thought leaders that are changing the game within retail and consumer goods. So today we have a really special guest, a CEO of an incredible company that's been really on a true transformation journey, and someone I've been able to watch really closely and from afar, Girishs Rishi, who is the CEO of Blue Yonder. So Girish, many I think know about Blue Yonder and certainly the old JDA, but you have been a real disruptor and innovator. Before we get into that, will you just tell us a little bit about your background and then get into Blue Yonder?
Yeah, Shelley, I call myself a recovering product manager. That's where I started my career, then went into North America sales. At an early age, got to run EMEA, expated in Europe with my wife, no kids. It was a lot of fun. I've done two early stage startups that scaled, and then I had the privilege of spending about a decade at Motorola, learning how companies last for 100 years. Best job in my life over the last 40 years. I've been at Blue Yonder, and exciting times for us to make an impact in the communities.
Yeah, I mean, I remember I had just joined Microsoft and you and I met, and you were so focused on sort of this transformation to the cloud, not for the cloud's sake, but really kind of unlocking value for customers. As the CEO, I mean, tell us about your role. I don't get to talk to many CEOs in this context.
Yeah, I mean, my role, I see really it's got two pillars to it, Shelley. One is really allocation of capital. Are we deploying organic and inorganic capital in the most discerning way for the long term transformation of our markets? As the largest independent provider of enterprise software for supply chain, we carry a degree of responsibility. So allocation of capital is one. The second one is talent development, and the both go hand in hand. So those are the two big pillars. Of course, establishing a few very select partnerships is on top of my list. And this journey started with Microsoft. We traveling up to Bellevue, meeting with Scott Guthrie and contemplating going with Azure. And it's been a fantastic partnership with your company, Microsoft, Shelley.
Yeah, well, we feel that genuinely, and so grateful that you chose us. I mean, there's no question. I'm a recovering retailer, and certainly in the earlier days of my career, supply chain was sort of the back office. But now, in these current times, it is main stage. It is what everyone is talking about. Tell us some of the most interesting, or some of the interesting things you're seeing in these current times.
Shelley, I've had the privilege of living in three different continents. A very small mountainous town, the city of London, a big urban city, and then a couple cities here in the U.S. What's amazing of today's times is, in spite of the challenges, as a human race, we are unified. Town I grew up in, friends in London, friends in Chicago and New York, we are all sitting in our family rooms or in our studies, and we have a computer on, and we are ordering food and things we need for our daily lives off of a computer screen. And that has created what I believe is a Copernican revolution. In the Ptolemaic age, the thought was the world revolves around the earth and we are flat. And then the Copernican revolution was, well, guess what? We are spinning, and we are spinning around something called the sun. And that's what's happened. Our lives revolved around grocery stores and physical brick and mortar stores. And now the life really revolves around the consumer, around you and I. And that has had a huge impact on supply chain.
Yeah. Yeah, I never thought I would have the day where my two teenage sons would sort of know that we need to pre-order things because of and specifically say because the supply chain is constrained. It's become consumer vernacular, and I love that you call it a Copernican revolution. That sounds so meaty. I think for people like you and for me, it's obviously an incredible privilege to help, as you say, the end employees navigate this, but it's not without challenges, right? So maybe share some of the challenges you hear and see about.
Yeah, our two big constituents, stakeholders, are the customer and and the associate, we call our employees associate. And there are exotic definitions of what the customer is seeking. Things like your company and our company is built like AI. But what I hear from customers are fairly simplistic questions. Where is my inventory? I just need real-time visibility. Where is my workforce for the warehouse or for retail stores or restaurants that are open? And will they be here tomorrow? How can I predict that? And then what do I need to plan for this weekend? We have gone to such a Zen existential environment where today and this hour matters. So we hear that from customers. And then Blue Yonder with Microsoft, how can you enable that real-time response? From associates, it started off with personal safety. The fact that 5,300 Blue Yonder associates working from their homes could be taking customers live. We took on a challenge, Shelley, earlier on in the spring time frame, that if our customers need more consumption of our software to drive fulfillment, and in the last 6 months, we have broken every record of going live and then towards consumption, time to value for our customers. So that's where our associates are focused on.
It's incredible. I mean, just hearing that incredible responsiveness, the fact that you call them associates and not employees just says a lot about you as a company. And we're seeing the same thing, just the speed. You know, a shared customer like Walgreens Boots Alliance, where all of a sudden, you know, their call center, they're turned into telepharmacists, helping people get the essential medicine that they need. That happens, you know, that was supposed to be a 3-year rollout that happened in 3 weeks. So just incredible.
Yeah.
Your software is in huge demand. And so how have your, I mean, you talked about the speed and the pace, but how have your priorities as a software provider changed given the supply chain needs during the pandemic?
You know, Shelley, I get asked that question often, as I'm sure you and your colleagues at Microsoft do. For us, our true north was defined about 3.5, 4 years ago, where our thesis was that for supply chain, what happens in the enterprise will matter less. What happens outside will have a greater proportion of influence on your supply chain outcomes. And it's documented 4 years ago. So we went in this industry, we've been around for 30, 35 years, from a very deterministic, fixed variable view to a very probabilistic view, because our view was that external news, transportation, consumer choices, health patterns will drive what you mentioned Walgreens carries and how they fulfill that. So what we have seen over the last 10 months is an acceleration of that. You mentioned our name was JDA. We had outgrown that name. We acquired a fantastic company out of Germany, a startup called Blue Yonder. And these are particle physicists who came in, about, I believe, 90 PhDs out of 110 employees of Blue Yonder, who applied a probabilistic approach of externalities, external variables with internal data to drive higher fulfillment rates. So we have seen over the last 10 months, really a linear acceleration of that. So as we responded to COVID-19.
Yeah, I love what you said, and it so resonates, Girish, because I don't think that it's necessarily that we're doing new things. A customer said to me, actually, Grab out of Southeast Asia, said, you know, COVID has been our chief innovation officer. Yeah. And not to belittle the pandemic, obviously, or the severity of it, but I think it's your roadmap that you had 4 years ago. It's not that it's changed, it's the acceleration that's happened. And actually, frankly, I think some of the energy that our customers feel about what they can accomplish in shorter amounts of time with more precision.
Yeah. You know, Shelley,
go ahead.
Example. You mentioned Walgreens. What you just said, there is a fantastic contextual example from Walgreens, one of our customers. And their head of supply chain said something very interesting in March that has stuck in my mind. He said, Girish, have you watched the Buddhist monks who intricately over hours and days, they lay out this sand mandala? And then they stand up and they sweep it all away. I feel like we were curating and architecting our supply chain for all these years. And then middle of March, we got up and we swept all the assumptions away. And on your platform, on the Blue Yonder platform, we created this new way of forecasting and fulfillment. And that's really stuck in my mind that, hey, 80% of the parameters that our customers were using vastly change, and that may be the new way ahead.
Yeah. What a great example of sort of drawing from past or Buddhism to actually like look to the future, because I think sometimes the most courageous thing that we talk to customers about is sort of the sweeping away of that mandala to get to the new and feeling convicted about that. I hear a lot about your Luminate solutions. I don't know that all those who are listening to us know what it is or how you've leveraged Luminate to respond to the pandemic. Do you mind going into a little bit of overview of that?
Yeah, Luminate is obviously the genesis of that is from illumination. It's invisibility and then driving orchestration. The best way I know, Shelley, to do that is to talk about a couple of our joint customers.
Yeah.
Wakefern, a mid-Atlantic retailer here, is using our Luminate platform that runs on Azure, native SaaS that drives machine learning towards forecasting outcomes. And what they told us a month and a half into COVID is that it has freed up our people. While workforce has been hard to get to, it has freed up our people because the machine learning algorithms are so accurate. We are letting the autonomous aspect of the machine drive the outcomes. DHL, another joint customer of ours, is using robotics to augment human beings, not replace human beings, augment human beings for repetitive tasks. And we have taken Luminate robotics in an execution space in a highly mission-critical distribution center in Spain, which is now being scaled. One other example I'd love to share with you is Becton Dickinson. Now, Shelley, here's a company not all your viewers may have heard of, but this company's been around for over 100, 120 years. Medical supplies company, crucial for COVID-19 times. And as COVID-19 started, we started seeing it. They worked with our team where we started taking data from Johns Hopkins University and CDC of the spreading coronavirus. And then we overlaid Becton Dickinson's logistics, their plant facilities, their inventory visibility to map out inventory responses. And this became an essential tool within the first 2 weeks. It was very quick go live in the first couple, 2 to 4 weeks. And Becton Dickinson is using that platform. So Luminate platform enables with all the cloud capabilities, but especially with machine learning algorithms that are proprietary to us, takes external data in a probabilistic way and very simply delivers food or toothpaste or shoes. I have 2 teenage sons as well who ordered a couple pairs of shoes last week on a timely basis.
Yeah. I love what you're saying, because in a way, what you're saying is that with solutions like Luminate, the software can almost take the backstage so that the retailer and the brand can deploy their employees and their brain trust to the things that matter so much to their end consumer, rather than all the manual workarounds that, certainly I grew up with in this industry.
Yeah, Shelley, I even wrote to the company. I tell them often to our associates, our customers don't come to us looking to buy software.
Yeah.
We are a vertical industry. You may be in the CPG industry or the high-tech industry. They are looking for these responses that they're facing on a daily basis. It just happens to come in the format of a software.
Yeah. No, and in a way, like I love what Satya says to us about this industry, which is with 31% of the GDP in retail, it is the demand signal for the world. Absolutely. And so, technologies like yours actually allow our customers to make sense of it. And our goal is actually to commoditize the tech so that they're empowered to do that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, obviously we're up against the peak couple months that our mutual customers are going to whether the retailers or frankly the CPGs are going to face. And it's not an easy climate. So what advice would you give sort of our retailers and manufacturers, which obviously a huge part of your base, as they strategize about 2021 investments?
Yeah, I won't be. I'll ask questions because I will not claim to be or that hey I can give our customers advice. But the questions I would ask is, are you prepared for the unknown over the next 6 weeks?
Mm-hmm.
And our customers understand what I mean by the unknown. And if you are not, how can the companies we work for, Shelley, you and I, help to stand up a capability? We launched 7 COVID-19 offerings on Luminate that could be stood up in a very agile way. Do you truly have a transformation plan? This decade, Shelley, will be of supply chain management, the same way the last decade was for customer relationship management. So we believe 90% of systems out there are analog. So is your data trapped in data centers? Do you have a true end-to-end transformation strategy? Are you addressing just nodes? Are you just fixing your forecasting or a warehouse or labor management? Or do you have a seamless end-to-end simple replenishment, fulfillment methodology laid out? So that's a question I would ask. The last question is a favorite of mine, Shelley. In all this software and geeky and technology talk, change management and governance and workflow is where the almighty is. You get that right, and you accelerate your transformation. So is your change management and governance laid out where you have great confidence? So those are things I would urge our customers to think about. Watch the externalities each day, each week over the next 6 weeks, and be able to respond to those.
What great and immediate advice, because I think we tend to think in months and years, not 6 weeks. And I think you're right. We've got to switch even our frame, just given where the world is. We recently did a study with Bain and supply chain with brands, supply chain topped as the number one thing that executives in this industry believe they haven't thought about strategically enough and need a seat at the table. And I think the advice of, from customer relationship to supply chain in 6 weeks, it's great advice. As I was researching about you, you said a perfect day for you was being able to ask 100 questions, and just that curiosity is amazing. Any closing thoughts you want to share with the audience?
The last thing I'll share, Shelley, is it is our team first moment for us, for all of us. And as a result of that, we will be more responsive to what we used to say, customer first. So I'm very privileged to be backed up with a team that is unbelievably innovative. We love Microsoft's vision and your motto of, and ours is fulfill your potential. We are here to fulfill our associates and customers' potential with a strategic partner like Microsoft. And this is a fantastic forum. And thank you for inviting me to it.
It's been a real privilege. I know that when I walk into a customer and I know that they're leveraging Blue Yonder, not just to your point, from a people perspective, from a cultural perspective, and then from a technology perspective, we're going to get somewhere together. So it's really great to have you here today to share your thoughts with this audience. I know that all of you who are tuning in today have really enjoyed this conversation with Girish, and I hope as we evolve and we maybe reflect on the season ahead, you'll come back and join me in some capacity so we can tell some stories about what we've learned together.
Definitely. Thank you for having me, Shelley.
Thank you, Girish. Thanks for joining us for Taking Stock Live. We have more really fantastic content, more thought leaders like Girish coming your way. And a heartfelt thanks from me and the team at Microsoft for helping getting us better.